Good morning, church. Today, Medard, Ngueita, Executive Director of World Relief, Western Washington, will be preaching. So, from Hebrews 13:1-2, I am Habiba Mohsen from Afghanistan. I will read in Farsi, and this is Pastor Genesis. She will read in English. Hear the word of the Lord. چنان که شایسته ایمانداران در مسیح است یکدیگر را دوست بدارید همیشه مهمان نواز باشید زیرا بعضیها با چنین کاری بی آنکه خود بدانند از فرشتگان پذیرایی کردند.
Keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. This is the word of the Lord.
Good morning, church. My name is Medard Ngueita, and I have the humbling privilege to be sharing the word with you today. I come to you from World Relief, where I'm the executive director, and so I'm bringing you the greetings from my entire staff, and this is an opportunity for us as an organization, but also for us being in the community and partnering with you all to do the work that God calls us to. World Relief is an organization that works alongside those who are rebuilding a sense of life here in Western Washington, and we partner with churches to serve the most vulnerable. That's our mission. And so I am honored to be with you here today. Let me turn on my computer here real quick. And thank you to the readers for us. Coming to you this morning, as I was asked to share the word with you, I was reflecting on what Pastor Peter shared last week with you all, which was, are you ready? Now, stepping up here, I wanted to make a disclaimer real quick that I am not a preacher, I am not a pastor, and so coming after a great preacher and a teacher, it's a challenge. So bear with me here as we go along. Thank you. But yeah, we just got a scripture from Hebrews 13, verse 1-2, which again, thank you to our readers this morning. And on that, I wanted to share with you today that our world continues to be more transient, and people move around the globe, around the planet. And sometimes for some of the people who are moving around, they do it so willingly. Some people are being forced to move around. And in the midst of it, those who are forcibly displaced, in the midst of all of that, I reflect on what mission is. Now, traditionally, mission is a way for a church to go somewhere in another part of the world to do something, maybe to help a new church build up, or to preach, or to evangelize and things, and to serve others. Traditionally, that's what mission has always been. But in the midst of what we're seeing around the globe, can we redefine what mission is? Given the state of our world, we can only live on mission right here in our backyards, in our neighborhoods, in our local communities, in our counties, in our states. We can live on mission right here. And to guide our conversation today, our reflection, I would like to humbly offer that we will look at the state of the world as it is today. Then in the lenses of refugee crisis, what is that world look like? Then we will be examining together the challenge of hospitality. And I will finish on living on Christian calling right here in our neighborhoods. So this morning I titled my sharing of the message with you as Hospitality as Mission. Hospitality as Mission. And like I said, I wanted to reflect on the state of our world these days. Of course, you know I come from World Relief, where we serve refugees, and so we'll be looking through the lenses of the refugee crisis. Now, you all may have seen the numbers when it comes to the refugee crisis around the globe. There are over 110 million people who are forcibly displaced worldwide these days. And of that number, I didn't have any intention to give you a lot of statistics, but I think it's important for us to set the stage for us. And so over 62 million of the people that are forcibly displaced are internally displaced, so still within the borders of their home countries. Over 36 million of them are refugees. Over 6 million of the over 110 million are seeking asylum. Now, these people are people who are persecuted and oppressed within their home countries, and they have to make the hard choice and have been forced to leave their home countries. Some are based on the unnecessary greed or evil that we have around the world, the greed of power and so on, that pushes people to go on war against each other or to persecute others. But of that number of refugees, only 1% of them will ever get a chance to be resettled in another country. If not, they remain their entire lives in the refugee camps. About 2 years ago, we all, as a world, witnessed the fall of Kabul in Afghanistan, where we saw refugees, we saw our Afghan brothers and sisters running towards the airport, trying to save their lives. About 7 months now, in Sudan, next door to my home country where I'm from. By the way, I'm from Chad in Central Africa, and Sudan is a neighboring country to my home country. And so the last 7 months, they have been fighting against each other, and that war has pushed out over 6 million people from that country, that tiny country. And in about just over 2 months, we all have seen what's going on in Gaza and Israel. And I'm glad to hear about today us talking about peace around the world. So our hope is that God brings peace into those regions. But World Relief Western Washington, since 1979, have been working alongside those who get a chance to come into the community in partnership with local churches. And you at Rainier Avenue Church have been a great partner of ours for so long, and we're so excited to be here with you today. And as our new neighbors, the strangers coming into the community, what is our answer as they come through? The Bible calls us to show them hospitality. But today I wanted to reflect, is it easy to show hospitality to strangers, even though that's what the Bible calls us to? There are some challenges that come with showing hospitality to the strangers and our new neighbors. And so I wanted to look at the challenges of hospitality. It is interesting that in our passage that we just read, the call was for us to keep on loving one another. Now, when I look at the word keep on, that's, to me, for someone who has English, whose English is just 17 years old, by the way, keep on loving, the keep on for me here refers to the ongoing action. The ongoing action despite the challenges. That's the calling, the ongoing action of keep on loving one another. But that action, which today, like I said, I wanted to look at it through what hospitality is. When I think about hospitality, hospitality can be defined as the act of being friendly and welcoming to someone. That means not only those that we know or those who are close to us, but anybody, any human being created to the image of God. We are called to love them and to show them kindness and to welcome them. People are culturally different. While we're called to love everybody, we are all different. Now, through those differences, those cultural differences, there are challenges that come with it. Now, culture itself is defined as the collective programming of mind that distinguishes the members of one group or a category of people from another. that definition comes from the book written by Gerd Hofstede in his intensive work on cultures and organizations. Now, our cultures then wires us in certain way that makes us different from one another, either a group of people or just people within different nationalities and so on. And so with that, we are different from one another. And you know, since our mind is programmed in certain way through culture, I wanted to share something with you. In my early years in the United States, you know, I'm from elsewhere, therefore I have a different culture. Now, through my culture, there are ways that we talk about things or think about things. My family and I moved to the United States in 2006, seeking political asylum, coming from Chad. Now, in my country, we compliment brothers and sisters in the community who start putting some meat on their bones. Which most of you will say that you're gaining weight. But where I come from, we don't say you're gaining weight. You're putting meat on the bone. And when that happens, that's a sign of success. You're doing well, you're healthy, you are good. And so when you see that, you compliment it, right? That's true, my lens, that's my culture. And it is the way that God designed things, and it's beautiful. We had a group of volunteers who were working with us, and one day I did not know that this may be offensive in this new culture. And so this volunteer came by and said, "Wow, you're looking good, you're putting some meat on the bone." Now, here is someone showing me hospitality, serving me, supporting me, working alongside me as I'm building my sense of life. And my appreciation to them is to compliment them and tell them what I'm seeing, and which is true to me. But I realize that you don't say things like that in America. That was my first cultural learning things in the US. And that's one of the challenges through hospitality, right? Things can happen. Last year, I happened to visit a family from Afghanistan, two single mothers. One, a mother of 3, who came with 3 kids. The other one was a pregnant lady who arrived after the fall of Kabul, and she was pregnant. So she had triplets here in Seattle Children's Hospital. Both of them were related, and they were living in Kirkland, where another church member who is showing hospitality gave them his home so that they can live in there until we find a permanent place for them. So the 2 ladies with 6 children were living together in Kirkland. So I happened to visit them one evening. And as I made my entry into the house to visit them, a neighbor who's also driven by showing hospitality was bringing them some food. Now, what was that food that she was bringing to them? Pizzas. She had no idea, and she wasn't part of our trained volunteers, but somebody with good heart who wants to show hospitality. So she had 6 packs of pizza, and she brought them over, and I happened to be with the family. And she said, "I have some pizza for you." And then they asked, "Is it halal?" And she doesn't know what halal is. And like I said, I happened to be there, and she turned around, "What is halal?" And I told her, "Halal, Muslim people don't eat any kind of meat. Halal is a meat that was butchered, an animal that was butchered by a Muslim person. And they don't eat pork. And we're talking about pizzas here." So you see how showing hospitality may have some challenges. And on that evening, because they don't eat pizzas, none of the pizza was halal. The lady turned around and she's like, "Do you eat pizza?" I said, "Yes, I do." I said, "Yes, I do. By the way, I have 4 boys." So what a great way of bringing 6 packs of pizza here. I'm leaving from Kirkland here, going home to Puyallup, so I have 4 boys. And she's like, "Well, let's divide it in 2. So she gave me 3 packs of the pizza, and she took 3 back home. But we spent time talking with the family, and right there talking about what it means as we serve our neighbors through hospitality. And it does come with challenges. But despite the reality of our differences, despite the reality of showing hospitality that may have some ups and downs, God still calls us to it because that's our calling as Christians. So there is a missional association with showing hospitality. So, what is that missional opportunity that we have? I just shared that I started by acknowledging what Pastor Peter shared with you last week, which was about, are you ready? His sermon was on, are you ready? Today I want to amplify on that question by adding, are you ready to show hospitality to strangers? Are you ready to step out of your comfort zone? Are you ready to love one another and show God's love to all? If some of you answered last week no, and you were still trying to figure out and you were still saying no, maybe Moses' story can help you change your position. We all do have excuses, all of us, including the biblical figures, so Moses. In Exodus 6, from verse 10 to 12, this is the interaction that was happening. Exodus 6, verse 10 to 12. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, go and tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to let the Israelites go from his land. But Moses said in the presence of in the Lord's presence, if the Israelites will not listen to me, then how will Pharaoh listen to me, since I am such a poor speaker? Now, this is Moses giving his excuses to God. Despite all the miracles that God has been performing through his challenge of getting the Israelites out of Egypt, he still is bringing up excuses. Then God reminded him earlier to him making this excuse way before in chapter 4, verse 11 of that same book of Exodus. The Lord said to him, who placed a mouth on humans? Who makes a person mute or deaf, seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go. I will help you speak, and I will teach you what to say. Now, if you're still having that same challenge, and you're still having your own excuses, and your answer is still no to the question that Pastor Peter asked last week, are you ready? Maybe as you see the interaction with Moses and God here, you would realize that no matter what those excuses are, God is still on the throne, and he's the one calling us into this missional work, into showing hospitality to others here. We are sometimes not ready because we keep the focus on ourselves rather than on God. We always forget that God's blessings in our life, we always forget that God's blessing in our lives to not let him use us to bless others and inter-exchange or inter-engage with others. Now, 2 years ago, when I had the humbling opportunity to step into this role as the executive director of World Relief Western Washington, I did present excuses to God as well. Focusing on myself, I thought about my English being only 17 years old. I thought about my accents, and I told God that I am not your person to step into these big shoes of being the executive director of World Relief Western Washington. So like Moses, that's an unacceptable excuse, unnecessary excuses, because I was focusing on myself and saying that I am not ready. But the reality is that God does not look into our abilities. He looks into our availabilities. So if your answer is no because you're focusing on yourself and you're thinking about your abilities, let me remind you today that God is not looking for your abilities. He's looking for your availability. You just need to make yourself available to him, and he will use you for the glory of his name. He will use you to show his love, what love means, to show his kindness, what it is, to show the hospitality, what it is through the eyes of God. Being hospitable to strangers and our new neighbors is an opportunity to be the feet and hands of Christ. In fact, in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 19 to 23, let's see what Paul is talking about here. Paul is articulating on something that is interesting here to me. He said, though I am free and belonging to no one, I have made myself a slave to everyone to win as many as possible. To the Jews, I became like a Jew. To win the Jews. To those under the law, I became like one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law. To those not having the law, I became like one not having the law, though I am not free from God's law, but am under Christ's law, so as to win those not having the law. To the weak, I became weak to win the weak. I have become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some. I do all things for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in his blessings. This is what God is calling us to show that hospitality to everyone. I mean, refugees that are coming into our community can represent all these different people that Paul is referring to here. They may look different, they may believe in something else, but what is our responsibility when they get into our community? What is that opportunity for us to show them that love? Because by doing so, being the feet and hand of Christ, we are showing them what God's love look like. They may not have the same belief as us, but we're sowing the seed. We're showing them love in action through hospitality. Mutual transformation happens when we get to be around other people. It is interesting how in our passage, the second part of it said that, do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. Yes. We don't know who is it that we're walking alongside. We don't know who is it that we're showing hospitality to. It may be an angel. It may be somebody that God will use to even transform us, which is why mutual transformation happens when we do show hospitality to others. Every opportunity of interaction with other people shapes both parties. We get to be transformed by accepting others, and others see God's light, love, and grace through our actions. We create opportunity for the community to thrive. And that's why I personally, standing here on behalf of World Life Western Washington, I'm so excited for the long-standing partnership that we have with Rainier Avenue Church. The opportunity through Naomi Cotton House will open doors for many families like Basim, who shared with you last week. Basim stepped here last week with Pastor Peter and interacted and thanked the church for welcoming them in that very house that now will see many more refugees coming through. Aren't you as a church blessed to hear him share that he just became an American citizen? Yes. And for us as a church to realize that his journey, Basim's journey as a refugee in Western Washington, started right here in this church. While Basim is not a Christian, but we opened the door and we welcomed him and his family. And now he came back and he shared that he just became a U.S. citizen. And that this congregation is the first friend and family that he and his family had when they began to rebuild their lives here in Western Washington. And that is the story of transformation that happened when we step into God's calling and we show hospitality to others because it is a mission field that we have right here in our backyard. I am really excited to see what God has yet to do through us standing up, showing hospitality, and serving those who are coming into the community, and mainly through the Naomi Cotton House. The question that I have for you today, or the question that I wanted to leave you with, actually 3 questions. Where and what God is calling you to step in? Where and what God is calling you to step in. And when you heard it, or when you hear that where, or you figure out the what, are you ready? Are you ready to step in? Either as a congregation or as individuals coming to the church together. And then what makes it challenging for you to respond and to say no? What is it? Are you presenting your own excuses like I tried to do, or like Moses did with God in the Bible? Are you showing your unnecessary excuses to God if you're still not saying yes to his calling of where he wants to use you? Let us not focus on our individual selves, on our challenges, on what we lack. Rather, let's focus on how God can use us in order for his glory to be shown in our community. That's what I have to share with you this morning. And I want to close us with prayer. We had the script, our passage was read in 2 different languages. And as I walked in here, seeing the representation of this church and reading some, right here, yes, reading some different languages, I wanted to offer the prayer in French, if you don't mind. So let's join me in prayer. Dieu de grâce, Dieu de bonté, Père de notre salut en Jésus-Christ, je te rends grâce et je te loue, je te bénis, je te remercie Seigneur pour ton amour. Merci infiniment Seigneur pour ta grâce et merci pour l'opportunité de venir ici et partager avec les frères et sœurs en Christ. Seigneur, je te dis merci pour cette semaine qui est une semaine de paix, qu'on se prépare à la venue de ton Fils Jésus-Christ, notre Sauveur. Merci pour cette église, Seigneur. Merci pour l'opportunité. Merci pour avoir disposé le cœur et les oreilles des frères et sœurs pour écouter ton message. Merci de nous appeler à montrer l'accueil aux réfugiés et aux autres gens qui viennent dans notre communauté, à tous ces immigrés. Merci également, Seigneur, pour cette maison qui va s'ouvrir pour que les gens puissent avoir où dormir. Je te rends grâce, Seigneur, de m'avoir utilisé aujourd'hui. Merci pour l'humilité que tu me donnes et Seigneur, merci pour les frères et sœurs qui sont disposés à écouter ta parole. Pour le reste de la journée, Seigneur, nous voulons te confier toutes choses et que ton nom seul soit glorifié dans tout ce qu'on fait. Au nom de ton Fils Jésus, notre précieux Seigneur et Sauveur. Amen.